But you've got some good news for us because now you are a state representative of which district, Joe?
I'm from Salem. It's Rockingham District 25.
Okay, 25. But you also are chairman of Granite Solutions. Tell people what Granite Solutions is.
Yep. Granite Solutions is a political organization in the state of New Hampshire that is dedicated to promoting a fiscally responsible message and thus supporting fiscally responsible and conservative candidates. We have a ton of great financial stewards in New Hampshire. And we need to keep New Hampshire on the right track when it comes to budgeting and how we manage our state government. And I really want to take a lot of those principles, bring those down to the local government where we've been seeing some excess over the past few years, and really just be an advocate for getting those same sorts of values to our federal delegation, to our federal government, because it's very clear that Washington, D.C. could really start to operate the New Hampshire way. We'd be better off for it.
Oh, amen. I hear that. But, when people are listening to the legislative process, which is going on now and really starts to pick up steam over the next couple of months, depending on which side of the aisle you listen to, if you hear the Republicans, we're saying, hey, we need to budget, we need to manage, we be responsible, blah, blah, blah. But then you hear the other side of the aisle saying, look what they're doing. They're starving us. They're cheating us. They're keep forcing these people to stay in low income. It's like, who do you believe?
Right. I would say believe our side. I would say believe the Republicans. And the facts speak for themselves. In December, our state's revenue came in about $59.8 million above expectation. That doesn't happen by accident. For the entire fiscal year, which we're halfway through the second fiscal year of the last budget we passed, we're just over $200 million above expectation. And I remember I was in the legislature back in 2013 and 2014 and 2015 when we were, successful. We worked with the House and the Senate, especially under the leadership of then Senate President Chuck Morse. We cut taxes over Maggie Hassan's veto. She said that it was going to blow a hole in the budget, and every single budget year since, we have seen our tax cuts that we continue to push for and continue to lower. We have seen those tax revenues increase because the simple principle, when you give businesses, let businesses keep more of their money, when you enable them to do more, they're going to produce more. They're going to do more, and we're seeing that in the receipts to the state in terms of tax revenue. And we need to stay on that path of being fiscally responsible, passing balanced budgets that live within our means, and creating a tax system that works for the people, that ends up overperforming expectations, so that at the end of a budget cycle, we have money in the bank, not money on a balance sheet that we have to backfill.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but when Maggie came out with that budget and it got vetoed, she came back with another budget. Wasn't it basically the same budget?
So what happened there was she vetoed the budget in June of 2015,
right,
over the business tax cuts that the House and the Senate were really pushing for.
Right, I remember that.
And then I remember Senate President Morse and Speaker Jasper at the time spent the entire summer going to all the groups in New Hampshire that Republicans typically don't talk to, pitching our Republican budget and pitching the business tax cuts that we were including in, and how it wasn't going to harm New Hampshire the way that she was saying. I think she was saying it was going to blow a $90 million hole in the budget.
Yeah.
And in that first budget, it produced $60 million more. So the swing, after we overrode her veto with a bipartisan unanimous vote in the House and the Senate to override the veto. And it was, at 3 months after she vetoed it, basically nothing changed in the budget that we were fighting for.
That's what I thought.
We got the business tax cuts that we were fighting for to make the Granite State more competitive in the business climate. And then that first budget, it produced $130 million more than Maggie Hassan was claiming our business tax cuts would end up doing to the state.
Wow.
And we've seen that time and time again. Even when Governor Sununu was essentially by himself and the Democrats were in the majority in 2019, Their budget agreement was we'll keep the tax cuts in there because even the Democrats at that point had to admit that they were working. But if the revenues don't come in at expectations within a certain percentile, they were going to freeze future tax cuts. Even in the pandemic, even when everybody was staying home and being cautious, business tax revenues did not hit the threshold that would have required a freeze in the tax cuts because our economy was still operating well enough, partly and largely because of our tax climate that we built to not hit those thresholds that the Democrats wanted to freeze the tax cuts at. And then this last budget, we further expanded tax cuts. We're phasing out the interest and dividends tax, which is going to be a great benefit to our Granite State seniors and investors. And we just got to, we're going to take up the new budget. We're going to hear from the governor about his budget in the coming weeks. And I believe it's going to continue our trend because he's very proud of the tax cuts that we've been able to get across. And Republicans just kept being fiscally responsible.
No,
so, again, just let people keep more of their money.
No, I love it. Now, let me ask you, because I know you've got a tight schedule this morning. We appreciate you making the time. You said revenues are over $200 million above expectations right now. What happens to that money? Is it earmarked for rainy day fund? Is it earmarked for one-time pay downs, or what? What's it go to?
So we actually had to change the law on the rainy day fund in the last budget because we were saving too much of our money. So our rainy day fund, thanks to really great fiscal management over the last few years, our rainy day fund is right where it needs to be. And that $200 million over expectations is just for this fiscal year. So the previous fiscal year, part of this budget had also produced a surplus as well. And we were able to utilize that money in the fall to provide heating assistance and energy savings and relief to Granite Staters that need it, and that program is ongoing. This money is going to go in for surplus that we'll be able to discuss and utilize after this current fiscal year ends or closer towards the end of it. We don't know where the exact surplus is going to end, but I think it's going to be a very healthy surplus. And I will never use surplus dollars to expand resources, and Republicans will never say, oh, great, we have this $500 million, let's expand this department. With one-time money, because obviously it wasn't planned for, that we have to use for either one-time expenses, that we have an infrastructure project, or water pipelines are a great example of that, or we utilize it to further provide relief where we can, or send more aid down to towns and cities and school districts where they need it, for those one-time projects that they have. You
and I both know, Joe, that the people who do the bond ratings love to see a state that has a surplus and has their fiscal house in order.
Correct, and it's been a journey to get to this point in 2023. In 2009 and 2010, we were in a much different position, but because we built on good budgeting and good fiscal management that House Republicans and Senate Republicans, and then with Governor Chris Sununu taking the helm in 2016, 2017, we have been able to maintain and build a culture of fiscal responsibility in the state that is going to be, I think, key to getting a good budget passed this year, but also is just key for what the people of New Hampshire want us to focus on.
There you go. Representative Joe Sweeney. Joe, appreciate your time this morning, and I hope we can get you back as we work through the legislative process. You can check in and give us an update what's going on.
Great. I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much, Peter.
All right. See ya. State Representative Joe Sweeney, chairman of Granite Solutions, giving you an idea. Hey, we're fiscally responsible. Who knew? Wow.